What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Rated M for Mature, Digital Chumps' very own video game podcast. I'm your host, Alex Tudor, and we have another big episode for you today, including PlayStation Plus's revamp, Hogwarts Legacy has finally been revealed, and much more. But of course, first, what would Rated M be without my illustrious co-host, Ben Sheen, and his dog, Teefie Nix?
I wish you had a tagline for that, but yeah, this is my dog.
I didn't even think about that.
We're trying to come up with new ways to get sponsors and get views, and if we can't get like SurePost or I don't know, Shutterfly or something, we can do.
We get like PetSmart,
yeah, we can
or
do
like Chewy, or
this will help us in the algorithm.
It will help
like
us
no one cares about two white guys.
Oh,
They'll
no.
just be like, oh, two white guys and a dog.
You better believe that when I go into like put in like the keyword tags and stuff, I'm gonna put in like dog, cute dog, small dog, like all the dogs, hot dogs. Like it's gonna be everywhere, so that when people are looking up cute animal videos, they find us.
And this guy, we should make him, depending on how he performs. I don't know, he's kind of bad. He barks a lot sometimes, but he's been pretty good.
No, he's been pretty good. He's very good for the camera. He's
yeah.
We'll see. We'll see once we kind of get started into the full show here. But he's wonderful. Teefie, I appreciate
thanks for showing up,
you
man.
Joining us today. This is gonna be great, and I hope it's not going to become. I hope it's not going to become one of those things where I'm like constantly watching like the monitor over here to see what he does. And loose.
It changes the dynamic a little bit. We've gotten to a habit, like Whoopi Goldberg.
Yes, I love Sister Act.
Isn't there a third one coming out?
I think so. I mean, there's a third sequel coming out for everything, so I wouldn't be surprised if Sister Act 3 is happening.
Yeah.
But how can you do Sister Act 3 without, like, I mean, obviously Whoopi Goldberg will be back, and I love Whoopi, but like, what about there were like so many other like actresses that were like in
Lauryn Hill was in there.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
She's fallen off the face of the earth, I think.
Yeah.
The Fugees were supposed to do like a tour.
The lady who was also in Hocus Pocus, she was in it.
Kathy and Jimmy.
Yeah.
But she's gonna be in the Hocus Pocus
3 or 2.
2.
Yeah.
Yes.
There wasn't a second. Yeah. So maybe she might be back.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Sister Act, go watch Sister Act. It's a great movie.
Anyway. It's got a lot of soul.
Yes. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, a video game podcast, so we're going to talk about video games. So let's move into our first news story of the day. PlayStation's mysterious Project Spartacus is finally here. Kind of. PlayStation announced Tuesday its upcoming plans to revamp PlayStation Plus into what can only be considered a more modern approach to a subscription service. Boasting several new offerings, PlayStation Plus is now broken down into 3 tiers: Essential, Extra, and Premium, with each costing $9.99, $14.99, and $17.99 respectively. Of course, annual options will be available for $59.99, $9.99, $120 for each service respectively. Great. The service is expected to go live sometime in June. We don't exactly know when. But you're probably sitting there asking yourself, what do I get with my hard-earned $120 a year fee, Alex? Well, I'm glad you asked, and strap in for an info dump. Essential gets you everything PlayStation Plus already offers, including the 2 free games a month. Extra, so PlayStation Plus Extra, gets you everything in Essential plus 400 select PS4 and PS5 titles available on demand. Premium gets you everything in Essential and Extra, plus an additional 340 games, including classic games from the PS1, PS2, PSP, and streamable PS3 games. But wait, that's not all. Premium also allows players to stream all of those games and gives players access to game trials for select games. Think special demo versions of new games. Now I know your second question. Alex, this is great and all, but streaming PS3 games? No list of what games are in the service? Isn't this kind of announcement lacking in important details? Well, yeah. That's what we're going to talk about right now. So Ben, this service, it kind of came out of nowhere. I know you.
Man, your cadence on that delivery was all over the place.
I know. I'm all over the place.
It felt
on
like
that
some
one.
of it was sarcasm, and
I know.
but wait.
But wait, there's more.
Also,
Well,
why did they name it essential and extra? You need to have 3 different consonants starting each of these words.
yeah, I know.
Extra should be like deluxe or
It's
something.
like essential, extra, and extraordinary, right? Like why
Isn't
is it?
EEP like some ectoplasmic energy? I don't know.
I mean, we were just talking about Ghostbusters.
Exactly.
So, but anyway, this came out of nowhere. Well,
Yes.
not out of nowhere. It was gaming's worst kept secret.
Yes,
We've known
Project
about
Spartacus was the rumored name.
Project Spartacus was the rumor name. We've known about this for months. They announced it on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. No special event, just a blog post, a tweet, I think Eurogamer article, or
Something like that.
it was like something like that. Like Jim Ryan came out and said, had a bunch of interview questions.
Was
and
this the
stuff like that.
virtuous cycle thing? That we
The
were-
virtuous
yes.
cycle, yes.
Okay.
So let me get your thoughts on this service. Of course, it's expensive, but what are your initial thoughts from the info dump?
I mean, my initial thoughts are I'm unsurprised at the pricing. I'm unsurprised at the lack of information.
Yeah.
I think most people expected it was going to be a library of at least PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 games, maybe some 5. I don't know, but the big question is what's going to be tucked away behind the premium tier,
Yeah.
and the fact that they're not even like teasing at it, saying that it's going to be June maybe is when that's going to start like rolling out.
Yeah.
I think they could have done a little bit more to give it some more pizzazz, but that also might be like a PlayStation state of play. But it would be nice to assuage those fear or whatever the word
Yeah.
is. Like, make people want to invest
Yeah.
in it,
Yeah.
especially paying a year.
Yeah.
Because no one should pay a month or a quarterly fee for that because it's such a ripoff,
Yeah.
obviously. My hope is that it's going to be like Nintendo's online service where we get, like have a library of games that we can just sort of like boot up or download, hopefully, because I think downloading it is going to be the biggest thing, at least for anything past PS2.
Sure.
Streaming those classic games like PS1, PS2, PSP, that's going to be fine. But I think people are going to want to, not have to worry about it.
So that's the thing. The PS1, PS2, PSP games, those can be downloaded.
Yes.
They've confirmed that those are going to be downloadable games. The only ones that are streaming only are PS3 games because Sony still hasn't decided to put the money into figuring out how you can emulate PS3 games on the PS5, which they can. They just have decided that they don't want to do that.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I honestly think it comes down to whatever PlayStation Now and whatever this new, PlayStation Plus service is going to have, like their server infrastructure probably isn't set up to actively handle how many tens of gigabytes, dozens of gigabytes worth of PS3 data that they have to allocate for people to download, right? They'd rather just have like a emulator machine that they stream out to people, right? Whereas PS1, PS2, PSP games, probably you would imagine at most 1 gig per game. At most. Like I'm talking like the biggest games. And I think that's probably
A couple CDs worth, maybe.
a couple CDs worth.
Like a Final Fantasy VII or something.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm very underwhelmed by like what you were saying is maybe eventually they'll have like a state of play where they kind of have a big blowout of like, here's all the games that you get. And they'll kind of have like a sizzle reel of like, here's all the classic games that you get. But in terms of like a random Tuesday morning, which didn't even feel like a random Tuesday because it's the last Tuesday of the month.
Correct.
When they could have been like, hey, here's all the details. It's coming out in April.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody, your current plan still sticks. We're rolling over to this in April. So don't freak out. Your current benefit is not ending in April. Right?
Because I was wondering how that was going to change, like being a current.
Yeah, it just carries over.
Yeah.
It just carries over. Like I just bought 2 years worth of PlayStation Plus, and now it's going to be essential. So I'm covered at least through the basic tier for the next 2 years. But, I feel like they could have gone ahead and done that. They could have at least released a list of games that were coming out. They did confirm, and I didn't put this in the intro here, Spider-Man is going to be on the service.
Miles
Morales is going to be on the service. Returnal is going to be on the service.
Which is great.
But then that's I think Mortal Kombat 11 is going to be on there.
And that was like the most random out of all of them.
Yeah, exactly. That was the most random out of all of them. But that was a great shot. I love that shot. I don't know. I just feel like they could have probably done a little bit more in terms of what classic games are going to be on there. Mm-hmm. Because PlayStation Now, which has kind of been the only area where you can find classic games, right? PS1, PS2, and PS3 games. The selection of those games in the that's why I put it in quotes, what are considered classic games, have been very middling.
Right. And especially the PlayStation 2, like that has such a massive library of games. Are we going to be getting all the Final Fantasies, all the Devil May Cries, like things like that?
Yeah.
But then are we going to be getting the really obscure stuff, because a lot of those games are extremely hard to find. And I would think many of those are classic. The PlayStation 1 and 2 are classic consoles that sold a lot, and a lot of those games are big legacy things. Like, people would, I floated the idea that it would be fun to have, like this like sort of like classic game night kind of thing almost, where you go back and like play these games.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of them would have online functionality like the Switch service does, or some of those like Super Nintendo games or whatever you can play with people online. It'd be interesting to go back and play like Ridge Racer or maybe Killzone 2.
A lot of those games, that would be awesome. Like if they came out and they were like, and I understand they can't do it because it's a PS3 game, and I don't know how you would make it work. Yeah. But if they came out and said, hey, Resistance is back, you want to play some Resistance multiplayer? Mm-hmm. I'd be like, yeah, sure. Yes. I mean, I played the hell out of Resistance multiplayer because it was, at the time, one of the only multiplayer games to play.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't know how many people are in the market for such a niche experience like that. And I think that's kind of what Sony is.
Well, that was always the argument that Sony made, was the reason why they didn't do backwards compatibility on things like the PlayStation 4 and 5 is because they did the research, and I'm sure they have millions of dollars to research things like this, and just found that like people weren't that interested in it. And I know like there are hardcore groups that would love the chance to play one or two games here and there. My fear is that, I mean, I know they haven't announced like a full game list, but it would be interesting and smart for them to say anyone who has a current PlayStation Plus, like basic membership, gets a free, like the first free month of premium is basically free for anyone who's already subscribed. Yeah. That way you can try it out yourself.
And they still could do that.
Yes.
Right? They could. I'm surprised they didn't announce anything like that. They didn't announce you get, your first year of premium at a discounted cost. Like, why didn't they do it like, hey, instead of $120, thank you for being such a loyal PlayStation Plus subscriber? Because I don't know how long have you been a Plus subscriber?
10 years maybe? I think since
easily.
2012. Yeah.
2011, 2012 is probably since I've been a Plus subscriber. And it's like, I was a Plus subscriber when the PSN outage happened.
Me too.
So it's like, I've been sticking with you all through the toughest times. And you're going to ask me for another $120 for something that I'm already in for the next 2 years? Like, I don't know. That just seems kind of scummy, but Sony has kind of been doing that.
And again, I think it's like this announcement has been kind of half-baked, in which we don't really know all the details outside of pricing and those bullet points that they've offered, which again, I'm not really sure what the benefit of extra is versus premium and why you would do that.
I think it's
it's the classic games, the PS.
No, that's premium.
No, I'm saying extra doesn't have those.
Yeah, extra doesn't have those. Yeah.
$20 for that, kind of library is probably going to be worth it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It is a weird lukewarm announcement, and they've done that a few times, like the way they've rolled out PlayStation VR information and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, here's a look at the controller. Oh, we're working on it without. And only now, a couple months ago, we found out what the headset's going to look like.
Yeah, and that was also just a blog post.
Yeah.
Like, here's the headset. It's like, cool. Like, the sizzle reel that you put together for the PS5 and that state of play was awesome.
Yeah.
Why don't you do something like that for the PSVR too? Like,
maybe they're waiting for it. I don't know.
Maybe they are. But they could have done something awesome like that. Show us all these awesome VR games coming out, and then be like, here's the VR2, here's how much it costs, here's when it's out. They could still do that.
Yes.
And and that's what my next question was going to be, is we don't know anything else for Sony for the rest of the year. Like, after Gran Turismo came out, we don't know anything.
Well, God of War
We know God of War
nebulously is going to come out this year.
nebulously, exactly. We know PlayStation Plus, this new version, is nebulously coming out sometime in June. We don't know if it's the beginning of June. We don't know if it's the end of June, middle of June. We don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll do a May State of Play where they announce a bunch of new like we don't know past God of War, what is there?
And we don't know when God of War is coming out.
Yeah.
But I've heard rumors about more Marvel games are coming. I don't know if you saw someone some leaker tweeted out like emoji-based Marvel things like Captain America, Daredevil, and stuff like that.
This week has been an interesting week in terms of
because Greg Miller had his whole thing where he was delaying the kind of funny podcast.
Their PlayStation podcast. What was interesting about that, and I don't know if you listened to them today in the Kind of Funny Games Daily thing. They talked about it. Jeff Grubb was also on there. Yeah. They said that supposedly, and I was going to put this in here, but I thought there wasn't enough info to kind of talk about it properly. But what came to light, Greg Miller said that there were 3 big announcements related to PlayStation happening this week. Right. Obviously, one of them was the PlayStation Plus stuff, which, as we've discussed here, probably could have been a little bit bigger, more exciting than they made it out to be.
Yes.
A second one was something that didn't end up happening, supposedly something to do with PSVR 2.
Okay.
But supposedly they've shown PSVR 2 at GDC. They've shown how it works. They've shown the games coming into it, 2 different developers. So they were thinking that supposedly there was going to be some sort of big blowout for PSVR 2, like a State of Play or something this week. Could still happen next week maybe, or in the next few weeks. We'll see. Then the third bit of news was supposed to be some kind of acquisition that Sony was buying, and both Greg Miller and Jeff Grubb, if anybody knows who Jeff Grubb is, he is probably, in terms of up and coming journalists, I guess you could call him. I mean, he's a journalist, but he's a podcaster. I mean, he writes for VentureBeat. He's awesome, by the way. Like, he's great, and he backs up his sources. Like, he doesn't just post anonymous. Like, well, he does post anonymous stuff, but it's always backed up, and it always happens. He's very, very good at what he does. He said, and Greg Miller both corroborated, it is a big, very big acquisition.
Okay.
So what that means,
maybe the ink didn't dry on the deal yet. I don't know.
I mean, it's not Haven Studios, which
that just happened.
That just happened last week, right? So it's not that, and supposedly it's very big. Now I don't know what that could be. I don't know if maybe they were like, hey, this Project Spartacus stuff is already out there. We just got to announce it. People will be okay if we say, hey, it's not coming out till June because we were planning a May announcement. Now, what's your hopes and dreams? What could this acquisition be? I know I'm just throwing this on you. This is kind of like out of nowhere, but
I'm going to give my dog some water while I dwell on this. I think the big get would obviously be From Software. I was thinking this on the drive up. You know, like, are we ever going to get a Bloodborne 2? Are we going to get an Elden Ring 2? Are we going to get a Dark Souls 4, Sekiro 2? That would be big in an astronomical sense, especially considering how big Elden Ring was.
Right.
And then we go from that to something like a Square, which I think we've talked about on here before, that if Sony bought Square, they would have Final Fantasy locked up. They could do the thing where maybe, you know, the Final Fantasies aren't exclusive, like, completely or timed. But they would also have some Marvel IP under their belt, and they could become the de facto Marvel studio. And I think that would be great for them. As great as this dog, honestly.
Teefie Nicks.
Beautiful little boy. I wish I had more treats to give him. But yeah, I think
I agree with you.
Something that would coincide with a future announcement, which we heard that maybe Final Fantasy 16 was going to be talked about.
Right. Well, and we already know, I mean, Final Fantasy 7 Remake is an exclusive. You know, and supposedly for the longest time, people were saying, oh, it's a timed exclusive, it's a timed exclusive. And it's like, great. It came out to PC, I think, right?
To come out to PC? No, I think maybe it did with the Intergrade.
Yeah, I think it came out to PC with Intergrade, but it never came to Xbox.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to, but it still hasn't. It's been over a year.
And then they said, hey, Final Fantasy 16 is a timed exclusive for PS5. And that might just be one of those things where it might actually just be a timed exclusive for PS5 and then come to PC. I don't know. We'll see. I think, though, you were right on the money. I think it is From Software.
Yeah.
I think in terms of what Jeff Grubb and Greg Miller both would say is a big acquisition, like a very big acquisition. I don't think it gets much bigger than From Software right now in terms of market mindshare.
Right.
Like, everybody's talking about Elden Ring right now. People want Bloodborne 2. What can you do that if you can get the ink dried on, like, this deal is happening, even if it's one of those things where it's like From Software still kind of remains has some of their independent status.
Right.
You know, they're not a fully, it's like Bungie. It's like they're not a fully fledged first party studio.
Right.
So they're able to still kind of make multi-platform stuff if they want to. Sony would be smart doing that. Like, why would you limit Elden Ring to Xbox? Like, it's kind of like the Call of Duty deal. Like, they can go to Xbox and be like, hey, you give us Call of Duty, we will, partner again and have Sekiro 2 come out on Xbox or Elden Ring 2 on Xbox.
Well,
I think that makes sense.
My thought is, how much is a From Software acquisition as compared to a Namco Bandai acquisition? Because the reason why I think that is because
huge.
Namco has so many anime properties that they do and make games for, and doesn't Sony kind of like do they have Funimation or Crunchyroll? What is the thing that they have?
Yeah, so they own Funimation, I think. Or they own Crunchyroll.
Yeah.
And they've partnered with Funimation. I can't remember exactly what the terms are, but you're right. That would be a huge deal if they were just like, we're going to straight up buy Bandai Namco, this whole publisher.
Yeah, because if they got just From Software, they might not have the rights for Dark Souls.
Right.
And maybe even Elden Ring, because Namco published that for them.
But I don't know if they would care. You know what I
true.
mean? Like, I think if you have From Software,
They could move on past it.
they could be like, hey, look, they aren't interested in making a Dark Souls anyway.
Yeah.
Like, if they want to keep making Elden Ring, we'll keep making Elden Ring.
Or just call it something else.
If we want to make Bloodborne 2, which that would be a huge get for Sony. Because right now, Sony's kind of like, people aren't really talking about Horizon. And
that's fair,
the game that's kind of like taken over Horizon spotlight is Elden Ring. But if you had both of those under your belt, think about it. Like, the last few weeks have been Horizon, Elden Ring, and then Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
So that would have been a Sony block right there if they owned all those companies.
Yeah, it really would be. And then they would have one of the guaranteed Game of the Years of 2022, possibly.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so crazy is that Sony had the ability to buy From Software. Like, they had the opportunity to own them in 2009 after Demon's Souls.
Yeah.
And they just let them walk.
They didn't know what the market was going to do.
They didn't see it.
Yeah.
Shuhei Yoshida actually has been on record saying that is like one of the biggest mistakes he ever made while he was president of Worldwide Studios.
As it should be.
Yeah.
They let Atlas have it, and then I think
they just lost it.
Yeah.
They just completely lost it. Well, that's so disappointing, man. I don't know. I wish the news broke this week. I understand why it didn't. According to Jeff Grubb and Greg Miller, both, they were saying like, hey, the sources that they talked to about it were kind of secondary sources, and the people who probably really know what's going on are like legally bound that Sony will fuck them up if they leak it. And then on top of that, they were talking about a bunch of different things, like they don't want to get developers in trouble if there's like certain things, like not necessarily that the deal would be off, but it would be one of those things of like, we will cut access to certain different things if you do this. So it's like, that's a dangerous game that you don't want to play. So I get it.
Or someone who should get fired and lose their job, and that would suck.
But we just know that acquisitions happen. Acquisitions are going to happen. And we'll have to see where the next few months come up. And we'll see. Teefie Nicks, are you going to...
He's probably getting a little restless.
A little restless?
Yeah.
Well, don't worry, Teefie Nicks. We're
moving on.
We're moving on.
To something really interesting.
Something really interesting. Let's move on to the next news story here. Hogwarts Legacy has finally been revealed. With a special PlayStation State of Play, we've been treated to our first look at gameplay for Hogwarts Legacy. While mostly a generalized gameplay montage, everything shown does seem to be authentically Harry Potter. Personally, I'm excited for the game, but it's going to be nearly impossible to ignore the elephant in the room, which I'm sure we'll discuss here at length. But Ben, let's start off with what was shown. What are your thoughts on how the game is looking?
It looks amazing, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I will say the trailer, I watched the stream, so it's probably a little compressed, not looking the best in the
Sure,
world.
sure.
Visually, at least graphically, not great. But I think it looks fantastic. I think it's the culmination of past Harry Potter-based like game movies, which I think the only one I ever played was Chamber of Secrets on the GameCube, and that probably super dates me.
I mean, that was a long time
God,
ago.
that was forever ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think the idea they have is great. It's not tied to the movies. It's not necessarily tied to the book. It's based in the late 1800s, so you kind of get your own character. And the world and the dedication they have to recreating Hogwarts, I applaud. I think there looks like ways that people are going to enjoy, like making their own witch or wizard.
Yeah.
That little weird space where they can make a cottage or something in some port.
Yeah, which is interesting.
The combat, I'd have to like play it or see more about it, but I think the way that it looks right now seems pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's obviously very weird for a 15, 16-year-old child to be fighting off against goblins and things, which you would never say it's like what normal life do these kids ever have.
It is kind of strange.
Well, because what's also going to be the story context for just like random fights and.
Well, that's what I mean. Is like I don't know how canon is the story, because yes, apparently in the lore. See, I'm a casual Harry Potter fan.
Okay.
I'm not like really deep into lore.
That's
My
fair.
girlfriend though, she loves Harry Potter, loves it. But she was letting me know about the Goblin War that happened before. So I think that this is kind of taking place around then. So it kind of makes sense in terms of the lore. But it's one of those things of how often in this world do the students of this school get involved in a war? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, if the original Harry Potter books were anything to go by, then it's pretty often. And I mean, obviously you have to do that for the sake of an engaging, maybe story, maybe game.
Yeah.
But I think based on what I've seen, it seems like it's leaning more heavily towards the sim aspect of being like a student at Hogwarts. The story is probably going to be important to keep the plot moving forward, but I wouldn't be surprised if this has, not necessarily in-game things like a Destiny, but ways to take more classes or play more games or make potions and do all these things after the story ends, because I think that's what people want from a Harry Potter game. They want to live life in Hogwarts.
I was a little bit disappointed, kind of what you were saying. People want to live past the end of the story of the game. I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't show any sort of co-op
That's fair.
or any sort of I was kind of anticipating this game to be a live service game. I was kind of thinking hey, they could have this, and I understand it's hard to make a live service game that works. So it seems like it's leaning more towards just the standard RPG side of things. But it is really cool. Everything that you can kind of build up and do, the potions. I'm wondering though, is if it is more a sim RPG, how often do you have to go to class, or are those, scripted events? How natural does that feel? Does it feel like you're living day to day as a student of Hogwarts, or is it hey, is it like Persona, where you woke up on this day and you still got to go to class, but things are happening on that day? You know what I mean?
I can't remember how it works in the movies or the books. I'm pretty sure they have a set amount of classes a day.
Yeah.
But obviously that wouldn't be very fun going to the same classes every day of every week.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there, maybe a good median, not necessarily a Persona, because you face a lot of time crunches in that game. But it's kind of maybe with Bully, for example.
Yeah.
That took place in a school. You had classes that were more mini games.
Yeah.
But I feel like those were kind of interstitial in between completing side quests and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe it's hey, you have a story quest, and you can do that at any time to forward the plot.
Yeah.
But maybe eventually you will run out of side content to do, and they'll be like, well, hey, if you want to figure out what the hell's going on in Gringotts or whatever,
Yeah.
you've got to complete your first couple of months of class or something like that.
That's what I would hope
Yeah.
it is. I would hope it's one of those things of kind of like Horizon,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you have your main story things like, hey, here are the main things that are happening that you need to complete eventually.
Yeah.
But do as much side content as you can until you get to a spot where you can naturally move on to the next story beat. I'm really excited about it. Like you said, though, the combat, watching it on like the gameplay was very interesting because it didn't necessarily seem very engaging to watch, but it might be one of those games that you actually have to sit down and play and it feels really good. Like when you actually have like, you know, like you and I assume are both going to be playing on PS5. So having a DualSense in your hand or something and having that haptic feedback of feeling like we're seeing a clip right now of like a duel, right? Like feeling like the different spells and like the different haptics coming through your controller as you cast the different spells.
Right.
That could be really cool. It could feel kind of along the lines of Kratos' axe, right? Which is the best feeling thing that you've ever, you know, played, right? Like when you throw the axe. And
definitely one of them.
It's definitely one of them. So if some of the spells feel like that, where you get that feeling, that click.
Well, I think an important part of that is like how they integrate like what you're actually learning, because you're supposed to be learning these spells and obviously you're going to be leveling them up. So how does your lessons correlate to getting a better fire spell or something like that? And do you have to strictly like play combat? I wonder if there's going to be, you know, you can be invisible, or you can take like a potion to dress up like a polyjuice potion. Anything. It needs to be diverse enough, but also needs to be fun, because it looked like a lot of you're standing in one place and like shooting spells out. And it's like a weird twist on the Batman kind of formula, where Batman was punching like and going back and forth, and it seems like everyone is actually just like trying to kill your your person. And I mean that could be fun and it could be intense, but also they're gonna have to balance out like I think they teased in the trailer the Avada Kedavra spell, which is like killing people, and I'm like, whoa, this is like it's a little extreme. I'm not sure how we're gonna like play this out.
That's what I was wondering. Like, you know, I was sitting there with my girlfriend and my brother, and we were watching it all at the same time. And as soon as the student goes Avada Kedavra, and I'm like, oh my god, that he's just straight up gonna murder this guy. Like, is there gonna be a karma system?
Yeah, maybe like a Jedi versus like or Sith kind of thing.
Yeah, can you?
That would be interesting.
Turn more evil, like, or is this the origin of an evil character? Like is your character like? I don't know the lore of Harry Potter in terms of like the really deep lore, but like
Voldemort's.
Well, not necessarily that, but more like Grindelwald, right? Which is like, you know, who is like this dark wizard and stuff. Like who
It's
I
the
think
one
was
that
a good wizard.
Dumbledore like was friends with, I think.
Yeah,
and
like I don't know. There's like things that they can do, and I'm sure that they'll do for huge fans of the series. The open world aspect of it is very intriguing to me. Supposedly, all of Hogwarts is explorable. You can traverse all of Hogwarts, and you know, it's one of those locations in any book or movie or anything that you watch or read. It's one of those locations that you would love to explore. So being able to finally have the opportunity to possibly check out every nook and cranny is very enticing.
Yes.
But they also showed off a lot of the elements of you'll be able to explore Hogsmeade, which is kind of like the town adjacent nearby, to kind of search for your books, and of course buy skins. You'll be able to buy different hats and robes and pets and things like that. That's where I guarantee the microtransactions.
They said there were not going to be any microtransactions.
Did they?
I think so. But again, that can always come in a couple weeks later, a couple months later. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they sold like packs of things, which, I mean, technically those are microtransactions, but I don't know. I think they could make a lot of money off of stuff like that. Without a doubt. Should they?
100%.
I don't know. Like, could you buy like here's a special colored owl or whatever for your room?
Yeah.
And things like going to Hogsmeade or these other locations. I'm trying to think of like there's lots of gameplay possibilities. Like you could go in there and buy food for buffs.
Yeah.
Or like a special book that you couldn't get wherever.
Yeah.
And going back to the story, I am really curious how they're going to have you be a fifth-year student coming into the school for the first time. I don't know how that works in the.
That was also kind of a disappointment for me because I guess it was more I was going in with the mindset of this is a live service game, so I kind of wanted to start out as a first year, and then go all the way through year 7, like, and just kind of finish it out. Like, I kind of wanted to get to that spot where. They start off with the base game as year 1 and everybody's year 1 and then just kind of build it out for the next 7 years. Then release a sequel. They could still do that, I guess. They could pull a Ghost of Tsushima and be like, hey, this first year, thank you so much for Hogwarts Legacy. It's been a great success. We're having a co-op experience or something.
People would love that.
People would love that.
Well, there is also the opportunity for sequels to be year 6 and year 7, if that's how the story plays out. If it's all like, oh, here's your year 5 adventure, your Order of the Phoenix level stuff.
So there's a few different things that I wanted to ask you though about how this game could possibly work then, since it is an RPG, and a lot of it is based on the customization of your character, right? So obviously, a big thing, and as you know, I mentioned in the intro to this news story. We're not going to be able to avoid the elephant in the room, J.K. Rowling. I agree, you probably agree, she is a bigot.
Yeah.
Like, she is a huge bigot. The developers have said that she has no association with the development of this game, which is great. The character creation is gender neutral, so every character is they, them, which is great.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome. But how do you think the actual sorting of into the houses is going to work if they have so much emphasis on the character creation of, like, you can make the exact character you want? Do you think it's going to be kind of like a Kingdom Hearts deal where you answer some ambiguous questions and then they put you in a house? Or do you think you get to pick your house?
I think you'll get to pick your house. They wouldn't force you down to anything, but I think they will ask you questions and be like, oh, you sound like you could be so-and-so.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a chance in hell that knowing how crazy people get over like Pottermore and things like that about being in a specific house, they would not force anyone to do that. But
I think I think they should give people the option.
Yes, they should
be like, hey, do you want to be able to pick your house, or do you want us to play it in a way that we'll put you in a house for you? Yeah.
And that also makes me wonder if they're going to force you to take every class, or if there's going to be some that you would like miss out on because as in that they were able to choose their classes. So it will be interesting to see how much narrative and like player agency they give to people, knowing that, again, what I think 75% of the player base is going to want is like a Harry Potter Hogwarts kind of sim. They want to live in this world, make those choices as that person.
Which, and I guess that kind of goes back into the next question is like, they really, really, really encourage people, or not encourage, but they're like really boasting that this is a game where you can live in the world of Hogwarts and like the Harry Potter universe and everything. Do you think it's going to reach a point, though, in the game where you're not really doing anything in Hogwarts? Because that's what I'm afraid of. Like, I'm afraid that it's going to be one of those things of, for the first 5-6 hours, it's like, I'm going to class, I'm leveling up my spells, and I'm learning new skills, and yada, yada, yada. But the other 15 hours of the game, I'm in the Forbidden Woods, or I'm searching for this monster, or I'm fighting the goblins, or these people invaded Hogwarts and I'm having to fight them off. They're now occupying Hogwarts, or like whatever generalized Harry Potter story there's going to be.
Well, it looked like in what they showed, there was a lot of your character hanging out with at least one or two professors doing some stuff off campus. Right. You were like summoning a bridge made of stone or something like that. Yeah. I saw a few things where you were exploring like puzzles, maybe flying and I'm sure Quidditch will be a thing, but you'll be able to probably get a hold of your broom, and it's going to be like any open world, like, hey, here's like a thing, like a little side thing, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot to do that is not, because it's still, they'll want to tell their own story in that universe, which can't all take place in Hogwarts. But they showed the Chamber of Secrets.
They did.
They showed a lot of different things like that, places that you've never seen, like the kitchens. I don't think they ever really showed off. Some bathrooms. So I think they'll want to do as much as they can with the world.
I think they will want to. I think the game is kind of ripe for expansions and DLCs and like content that they can add into the game. I do really think that this might be a testing ground for them to make a live service game. Like, get all the systems down, make sure it works, and then add in a live service component. Because, come on, man. Like, they teased Quidditch.
They did.
Right? Quidditch, in and
Quidditch
of
has its
itself,
own game.
Quidditch is its own game. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Where, do you remember on the PS2 and GameCube, the Quidditch World Cup game? I loved that game.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that game was awesome. And so that's what I'm saying is, if any of these elements are even half-baked, it's going to be picked apart. It
will be. And I think, I mean, how long have they probably been stewing on this game? Like 5-6 years?
Oh, it's been no, I remember you and I were at the Call of Duty review event for Advanced Warfare, I want to say.
Oh my God, that was forever ago.
Yeah, I think it was Advanced Warfare, and it had leaked.
No, it wasn't Advanced Warfare, because that was my first one. Nathan was there, so it was probably...
Not Advanced, okay, maybe it was Black Ops?
It was either Black Ops 3 or Infinite Warfare.
Infinite Warfare. Maybe Infinite Warfare is what I'm thinking of. But yeah, it leaked. I remember it leaking, and like it was just like a 5-second clip of this guy in like a cave, like doing like the spell.
Whatever
so that was 6 years ago.
Jesus.
You know what I mean? Like, so they've been working on this game for a very, very long time. But again, if Quidditch is fucked up, then what's the point?
Well, they had Quidditch in the Chamber of Secrets game that I played, and I obsessively played that, and it was literally
That's true,
pointless.
they did.
So, I mean,
the Chamber of Secrets game is impeccable.
I don't know why everyone talks about that one. I guess because it was, and Chamber of Secrets is like the worst book. So
yeah,
I don't know why
I don't know if it was the worst book.
What was the worst book?
Order of the Phoenix.
I think that's debatable.
Half-Blood Prince is the second worst. And then probably Sorcerer's Stone, and then probably Chamber of Secrets.
Okay, well shit. All right.
Yeah.
Damn.
Prisoner of Azkaban is the best one. It is.
I think people are just biased on that one. I think because that's when everyone started really getting into Harry Potter. Like,
it's the best book. It's got all the elements that you want.
He's becoming so impatient.
I know, he's just like, I don't like Harry Potter. It's fine. Yeah. Anyway, so Ben, this game is very exciting.
It is, and I mean, do we want to talk about old Joanne?
You know, so that was going to be my next question. It's so hard nowadays to... It's one of those things of like we're all having to deal with the thing of don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, my dog's like running away from this conversation because it's probably going to get fiery. Here, I'm just going to... We must confront...
You know, he's like a little Ewok.
Yeah.
He's like just a little fluffy Ewok. But anyway. Yeah. It's really hard nowadays. You know.
That's what she said.
Yes. We're really coming to terms with a lot of the people who created a lot of our beloved things that we know. Yes. Are shitty people. Just in general. Like, I mean... The news that we talked about this week, we talked about it in the Discord, Ezra Miller.
God.
He's causing absolute chaos. For those who don't know, Ezra Miller plays the Flash in the Justice League movies, and the Flash is getting his own solo movie sometime soon with Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman in it, which is awesome. But he's been causing chaos in Hawaii. And first off, he was at a karaoke bar where he assaulted this lady who was singing a song because he didn't think that she should be singing Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper's song from A Star Is Born. He didn't think that she should be singing that song, so he assaulted her. What? So that's the first thing. Jesus. Then there was a guy who was playing darts in the same karaoke bar who he attacked. And then he broke into a couple's bedroom, I guess at their hotel or something, and threatened them, and then stole some of their stuff. Okay? So the Flash, who is a superhero, is causing chaos. So that's happening. So that's a moment where this, you think of like the little kids now who are like, oh, the Flash, I love the Flash. I just dressed up as the Flash for Halloween. I love Ezra Miller, blah, blah, blah. Who was in Harry Potter, by the way. He was in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Oh, I haven't seen any of those new ones.
Yeah. So, don't meet your heroes. That sucks. So J.K. Rowling is the same thing, where, yeah, she created something that is considered probably a cultural touchstone for anybody under the age of 40. You know what I mean?
I'm getting there.
You know what I mean? Like, if you were
I read Harry Potter in middle school, and we had a pizza party for Harry Potter, and only the first 2 books were out, and it was me and one other person.
Yeah.
And it was weird to think that there was a time where Harry Potter was kind of niche for, like, 2 books.
Yeah.
And then the movies came out. Oh, he's getting so
antsy.
I think he just wants down, but I don't know. And he's breathing in the microphone, but like, whatever. He's a dog. He can't help it. But I know that Joanne, I want to like derogatorily call her like Joanne because she's like, her pen name is JK, everything. But she seemed so cool. She was a single mom who created this multi-billion-dollar universe.
Right.
And then just can't shut up on Twitter. It's like the Will Smith, Chris Rock slap thing.
Oh my God.
It's rich people's feelings, and no one should have to listen to them because they don't matter. Like, they shouldn't affect us, but we let them. Yeah. And I mean, in the past decade-ish, she did the Cursed Child thing, which is like a post-Harry Potter book. She's done her weird whatever like book that I think was lukewarmly received. Yeah. But she'll throw out a random Harry Potter thing. Like, I think that's how we heard that Dumbledore was like gay. Yeah. And that's how we found out that wizards would poop on the floor in Hogwarts and just disappear it. It's like, do we really need to know these things?
No.
Like, was anyone asking? But it's like, she's gonna be like, well, I need to be relevant for like a couple weeks or something.
It really feels like that most of the time. And it's always one of those things like, hey, like, I don't know. I just don't understand how, I guess it's one of those things where she's so rich, where she just doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. And I look at it as like, everybody's saying, why would you buy this game when the money is going to go to her? Yeah. And my whole argument for that is the money's already gone to her. Mm-hmm. They've already licensed to develop this game. Yeah. Like, they've already paid her the money. And whatever royalties that she gets from it, she's gonna get anyway. Yes. She's getting it from the movies right now. The books are still selling. Clothes, action figures, old video games. She's still getting money from all of those things. So it's one of those things where it's, my $60 towards it is gonna go towards the developers. Yes. Who have also been paid already. But it's one of those things where, hey, I'm buying this piece of media because I want to maybe enjoy it. And the game could be shit. It could come out and be awful. And we're not, that's the thing, too. I feel like a lot of people are going to be extra critical on this game.
Yes.
Extra critical on this game.
They will pick it apart intensely.
Intensely. Not only because there's a lot of intense Harry Potter fans out there, but because J.K. Rowling can't shut the fuck up.
Well, I think you saw this a lot with Diablo 2 Resurrected and Call of Duty last year, where people were having trouble. I mean, basically every review for those games came with the note, hey, Activision has done terrible things. Yeah. Some people refused acknowledge those games or review them. Some people were like, hey, we're just saying this. If you want to know more information, here you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think ultimately, just like most things in this industry, people are going to decide with their wallets.
Exactly.
Like loot boxes became a thing because people paid for them.
Yeah.
Dead Space 3 with those like DLC paid weapons, that
Yeah.
became a thing, and EA got away with it for years.
Yep.
So we're just living in this world where I think, as much as people might want to be upset about like what she said, and it's justifiably like fine to not want to buy this game for whatever reason, that is your choice.
Yeah.
But like I want to play it because like I can separate like
Yeah.
her from the world that she created.
And I understand if people can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what you were saying, vote with your wallet. Like literally, if you are disgusted by it, don't buy it. And I completely understand that. I would also say though that there are so many Harry Potter fans out there. It's not like it's a niche thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Harry Potter is, like I said earlier, is a cultural touchstone
Yes.
for millions and millions and millions of people. And like I would say, anybody under the age of 40, but there's plenty of the older audience that enjoys Harry Potter as well. That not all of them, for supporting a game like this, are also bigots. And I think
Right.
it's also one of those things of people need to be careful a little bit of who they are going after. Going after J.K. Rowling? Yes.
Sure.
Great. Go for it. Going after the people who enjoy Harry Potter? Absolutely not. Because more often than not, they have done nothing wrong.
Yeah. And
Like-
the same with I mean, I know that last year or shortly before that, one of the developers behind the game kind of got canceled. Right?
Yeah, that was a complex
It was very
situa-
complicated because,
yeah,
but I think working on the Harry Potter game put much of his work
right.
like on YouTube and stuff like that under a microscope, and you can be understandably upset with like the opinions that people have. But
Well, you and I have both watched that interview with him
Yes.
in the last recent few weeks, and it sounds like a PR thing, and I understand it. They want this game to go in with as much of a, I don't want to say pillow, you know what I mean? But
Parachute, maybe?
a parachute as they can, because it's already going to be under a microscope for political reasons and everything like
Yes.
that. I am excited for this game, but not because of the political reasons, but because I enjoy Harry Potter and I have a nostalgic thing in my heart for
Yeah.
it. You know, I don't know, Ben. Let's move on though, because it's one of those things like it's going to be talked about to death, and I get worked up about it, and I don't want to get worked up about it because it's frustrating to talk about. But
Understandable.
there's other things that have happened, other games that have been announced. I didn't throw it into the news story here, but we do have a little bit of time left, so I saved it for the end here to kind of talk about it. Ghostbusters, what's it called? Ghostbusters
I don't remember.
Spirits Unleashed.
Sure.
I think it's Spirits Unleashed. It is the new ILPHONIC 4v1 Friday the 13th the game, Evil Dead the game, Predator Hunting Grounds, that kind of
Dead
game.
by Daylight.
Dead by Daylight,
Yeah.
like that kind of game, but it's Ghostbusters.
Right.
Where you and 3 of your other friends can suit up as Ghostbusters. You get to create your own Ghostbuster, and you get to go in there and go to different sites, go to different maps, and bust some ghosts, trap some ghosts. It sounds like a great time. And there's the ability for you and your friends to go against computer-controlled ghosts, or another player can play as a ghost, which is awesome, to kind of see what you could do as a ghost. They kind of teased it in the trailer that they showed, where you can possibly possess different items, and it can kind of become like a prop hunt kind of game. It's all, but from the Ghostbuster point of view, it's all in first person. You have all of the classic gear, like your what's it called?
Proton packs.
Yeah, your proton pack, and you have the wand.
The PKE meter.
The PKE meter. Thank you. You're calling out.
I was a child of the 80s. I know this really
There you
well.
go. It looks like a great time. So what do you think?
Look, I have only watched the trailer for this once.
Sure,
And I understand the concept of like the 4v1, like
Yeah.
evolve monster versus like people. And I'm like, whatever, just do something with the damn Ghostbusters property. We've had, in the last 20 years, 2 games, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
We had that
so.
weird isometric thing that Activision put out, and then there was a continuation of Ghostbusters 2.
Which was actually pretty good.
That's what I heard, but I never played it.
Yeah.
But it had, like, all their voices and stuff like that. So
It was
why not?
remastered for PS4, by the way. So you can get it right now on PS5.
Oh, shit. Well,
Yeah, and I've heard it's a really good remaster, too. I think it's on sale. Anyway, so,
They had
not to plug it, but, like,
Well, they had
it's good.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's going to be one of those things that's a pretty saturated market right now, especially, like you just mentioned, Evil Dead is coming out. You know, Dead by Daylight is still
Dead by
really
Daylight
popular.
is huge, yeah.
Like, there are so many games of this type that just...
I think it's great because they do have Ernie Hudson and Dan Aykroyd back as their characters in the game.
It looks like it's a continuation of Afterlife.
Yeah, exactly, and which is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
which is great to see. And I hope they kind of have some of those story elements throughout the game to level up your Ghostbusters. Predator Hunting Grounds, I always felt like was a missed opportunity because they had the story there, but you had to find it through audio logs while playing the game, and nobody cares about looking for audio logs.
Not in a game like that.
Not playing a game like that. And another thing, and I've read an interview, or I watched an interview with Kind of Funny. Greg Miller is in the game, and he was kind of talking about like the preview he did of the game. The ghost and the different ghost types that you can play as are all very different, and it's fun.
As they should be, yeah.
And it's fun to play as them. That's the thing with Predator that I never really found as a
No
fun
one wanted
time.
to be the Predator.
Because the Predator was so underpowered. And then when they made it overpowered, people were like, well, he's unbeatable and he can't be beat. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, that's kind of the point. Like, I don't know.
It's a hard balance because I think,
Yeah.
well, Evolve, I feel like did that really well, but then it just lost its audience.
Yeah.
And I think what will help is, A, if this is not a full price game,
Right.
B, if it's
I
on,
don't think it will be.
if it's on everything, like every console that it can be.
Yeah.
Is it going to be on Switch?
I don't think they've announced consoles.
Oh, they haven't? Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Well, Ilphonic, I think, is a PlayStation first party now.
are they?
I think so. And I think that's why they have the...
Oh, because
the
did Sony
Ghostbusters.
do, Sony?
Sony has
okay.
Ghostbusters, yeah.
Yeah, and Afterlife, I think we just talked about before the show. It was pretty good, and
Yeah.
if it continues the story of that and like could lead to more Ghostbusters, we could have a Ghostbusters Legacy game or something like that. Why the hell not?
I like Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
I think it's one of those franchises that you could do so many different spin-offs. Now, the 2016 Ghostbusters was kind of... I think it could have been good
Yeah.
with all of the SNL ladies. I think it could have been good. I think it was another victim of the Sony curse of too many executives coming down and saying it needs to have this and this and
yeah,
this.
I can see that.
Too many studio notes is what I'm trying to say.
I never finished that movie, by the way.
Yeah, I think it could have been good. But Ghostbusters Afterlife was awesome. I think a game like this sounds great. I know we're probably going to play it when it comes out later this year. I
Yeah.
can't wait to play it. Like, I think it sounds like a ton of fun.
Me too.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Rated M for Mature. As always, you can find us over on YouTube and Twitch, and be sure to check out all of our reviews on digitalchumps.com. We want to hear your thoughts. What do you think of the new PlayStation Plus? How about Hogwarts Legacy? Be sure to let us know on Twitter or in the YouTube comments down below. As always, I've been Alex Tudor for Ben Sheen and Teefie Nicks. I almost
Yeah.
said Stevie Nicks, but it's Teefie Nicks. We will see you next time.
This guy.